Welcome back to the Real Estate Rat Pack Radio Show with Chris, Joe, and Rob. The crew is taking your calls, so dial in at 1-800-808-5548.
And welcome back to the Real Estate Rat Pack Show. Man, you know what's funny is we're all talking, then he goes live.
And live.
Quiet as a mouse inside here, let me tell you. You know, we got a great show going on right now. We're talking all about down payment assistance. Again, if you have a question, reach out. Call us right now. We're live in studio with some great individuals, 800-808-5548. And next up, actually, is Rhonda with Seth, which is also known as the Southeast Texas Housing Finance Corporation. How you doing?
I'm doing great, and thank y'all so much for having me out here today. I'm excited to have a chance to talk about all these great programs, and there are a lot of programs to talk about.
Okay, well, let's just start off. Let's start.
All right. Well, then you know what? I'm going with it. I'm going with it. Well, my name's Rhonda Mitchell, and I do marketing and outreach for Southeast Texas Housing. Southeast Texas Housing, they've been around for years, and they've had all kinds of great programs. The programs change periodically, as funds come and go, and ideas and what's best in the marketplace. That does change. Right now, though, we have a program that is available across Texas, so not even just limited to Southeast Texas, but we do have a program that is available across Texas, and you don't have to be a first-time home buyer.
Well,
How
let's talk
cool
about
is that?
Let's talk about it. Tell me what the program looks like.
That is the Seth 5-Star Texas Advantage program, and it provides up to a 5% grant, and that's going to be 5% of the loan amount. So, for example, if maybe you had a loan amount of $150,000, this program is going to provide you a $7,500 grant. And when I say grant, I mean no strings attached, no lien, no repayment, no recapture provision, no.
No length of time you have to stay in the house?
No, sir.
And that's important, by the way. Let's point that out. One of the things that most people have to realize is a lot of the programs out there, there is a recapture period of time. You have to stay in the home for a certain period of time, et cetera. So that's extremely important to know what the difference is between those things.
Yeah, you're very right. I mean, it really is. Obviously, nobody knows what they're going to be doing 10 years from now. And these programs, they all have different fund sources. And so sometimes there are different requirements on the fund.
Let's talk about the requirements for that particular, the 5-Star program. Let's talk about somebody sitting out and says, I'm really interested in that program. How do they qualify?
Well, they need to not be a first-time homebuyer, so you don't have to be a first-time homebuyer, but you do have to be income eligible, and that's going to depend upon the county in which the home is located in. So say, for example, they're looking at maybe Harris, Galveston counties. The maximum income for that program is going to be $76,100 a year. So that's the maximum. So, if they're making under that, that's going to be just fine.
Is that just a gross income?
That's going to be income that's on the loan application.
Okay.
So that's something that really the lender is determining for them.
So that's household income, is that right?
It's going to be income on the loan application, so not even household income. It might be that you've got mom and dad, and maybe we're only doing the loan in dad's name. Then we're only looking at dad's income at that point.
Right.
So
That's
a little easier to
that's a big point
qualify.
know.
Right. I know that income usually, in general, this is on subject, but when you look at a loan application,
It's our show. We can do what
it's
we want.
exactly right. Is that when you look at a loan application, the income that a mortgage company is obligated to look is at your gross income, not your net income. Okay. Now, also, if you are self-employed, you have to look at any self-employment income. If you have your own business, let's say you're working for a big company, you got your own business, and you have a Schedule C profitability, you have to use that as income. So it is total income associated with the file, and the way we underwrite it or document it on that loan application goes by the normal standards associated with Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, FHA, et cetera.
So and we're looking at, so we get a 5% grant. What other monies are necessary from the borrower?
Well, from the borrower, there is no investment required on this program because of the fund source. That 5% grant, it comes from us, and we are an instrumentality of government. So it takes care of what is the buyer's required minimum investment per FHA guidelines.
Okay, so typically it's in conjunction with an FHA loan is what you're finding?
Yes. FHA and VA and rural housing for these programs. So these programs are not conventional loans.
Okay, so they still have to qualify for the loan just like any other
Exactly.
FHA, VA.
Exactly. There's going to be that 640 FICO score requirement. So there's things that do come in like that.
And generally the best way to look at it as an overlay is what I tell everybody is you still have your underlying requirements for FHA, for VA, for rural development, which is
Exactly.
USDA. But what this basically is, this is now the overlay on top of that basically, which is going to give you the grant money, which is going to give you the ability to get in the home based upon what Seth offers.
Is there any restrictions on area? I mean, we're talking about the Southeast. Is it just restricted to the Houston area, or is it outlying areas?
Yeah, with the Seth 5-star program, it's actually available across the entire state. Now, I do have a couple of cities that it's not going to be allowed in. That's not areas around here. It's El Paso, Grand Prairie, and McKinney. So really around here, the sky's the limit.
That's amazing.
El Paso's been booming, though.
I'm like, okay.
So Rhonda,
It's early.
Rhonda, is that your number one program right now? You think?
That is. It's a wonderful program for us, and it's helped so many people. Now, the program does require homebuyer education, which is a big component of all the down payment programs, that we're going to be talking about today and that Shad's talked about. They all do require that homebuyer education.
Yeah.
What's the typical? I don't even know if it's something that's on your radar, but what's the typical stuff that you all cover in the home buyer education stuff?
Well, the homebuyer education, it covers shopping for a home and shopping for a mortgage, sustainability, staying in the home, things to expect as a home buyer.
Right.
Property taxes, repairs,
Maintenance.
Maintenance.
They really should do that for everybody.
Well, they're actually
especially
starting
first-time
to,
home
believe
buyers.
it or not, a lot of the lower down payment programs, even from a Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, like your 93%, your 97% financing, are all requiring people to go to homebuyer education classes now.
Because a lot of people think, it's just the cost of getting into the house, and they forget that, they do have maintenance and repairs and electricity and property taxes and all that stuff that goes along with it. So
Right.
I think
Yeah.
that's a great idea.
Yeah, it's definitely true. And there's been studies on homebuyer education that have shown that you are 25% less likely to default when you've taken homebuyer education. It
Wow,
makes it
that's a
for a
great
stronger
statistic.
homebuyer.
And I think that's what happens with a lot of those loans that we had, that 106% financing, that recipe for disaster we had in the year 2000. If there'd been a little bit more education out there when you were taking a loan like that required very little skin in the game or no skin in the game, I think a little education would have saved a lot of people from getting into things over their heads.
Exactly.
So, talk about some other programs you have, Rhonda.
Well, we have our 5-star Texas Advantage, and that's the one I told you. It's no home buyer requirement. It is available across the state. We do have an MCC of our own, and the MCC is a mortgage credit certificate program, and we do have that, and it is available for select areas around here. And so it's going to be our Houston, Galveston, Brazoria, those areas.
And you can thank our other guest, Shad, for that even coming into being, because he was with the Texas Department of Housing when that was implemented. So thank you, Shad.
Yes, thank
Sounds
you.
like a great program.
The MCCs
Another
are
shameless plug
just
for Shad.
phenomenal. They are. They're phenomenal programs. And I always tell people when I talk about MCCs, we tell our home buyer, we say, what? You're buying a house, you're getting this great tax benefit now. You're going to be able to write off that interest, write off those property taxes. And you know what happens when they go do their taxes? They end up taking that standard deduction. But with the MCC, you are guaranteeing people that tax benefit for being a homeowner.
You still got to put it on the
because
line,
they get
though,
it.
don't you?
You have to take it to get it. But you're guaranteeing somebody a tax benefit now for owning a home.
So
That comes with interviewing your accountant. Are you aware of down payment assistance programs?
Well, yeah. Well, that again, like Shad was saying, it starts with your realtor. I think that's something a realtor and a lender should be talking to the borrower about that. Like,
Yes.
be sure to do this, 'cause otherwise you're missing the entire benefit of it.
Exactly.
Well,
exactly.
this part of our I had a thought, and
Oh, my God.
I short circuited myself.
It died of loneliness. Huh?
I was like, I'm going to say that, but wait, I want to back up a step. But wait, I want to. So I short circuited my whole darn thought. The goal of a show is to educate our listeners. That is always the point of this show. We have a good time, and we're silly and all that sort of thing, but it was really what we set out to do with this show, was to provide some good content for people about the process of buying and owning a home. And one of the shows that we have on a regular basis is What You Don't Know Can Hurt You. And this falls kind of topically into that. You don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. So this whole show about down payment assistance is about educating folks on that subject. I don't know what is available out there, and I'm involved in the market, pretty closely.
Kim, we might get you that new home sooner than you think.
Oh, no. I thought we could make one show without mentioning that. And she listens every week. She mentions when y'all talk about when we're supposed to buy the house.
She sends me a regular check.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah.
So, from the standpoint of what's available out there and who it applies to and all that sort of thing, it's critical information to me. If you don't know to ask,
Mm-hmm.
it's one thing to be able to interview the realtors. We always talk about on the show. That's a regular thing. Interview the experts you're working with to make sure they're experts. But if you don't know the questions to ask, how do you know? You don't know what you don't know. So in that vein, for folks that are listening out there, what questions should they be asking when it comes to, do these programs apply for me? You know where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
Is there anything available out there for me?
Yeah, you definitely want to ask, what is available out there for me. You want to ask, you're a realtor. You want to say, what, I'm buying a home in this area. What's available in this area? Because a lot of times, it depends.
Oh,
it depends on your income. It depends on if you're a first-time home buyer or not. It depends. So sometimes it's more helpful just to know what all the programs are, and you kind of learn, and figure out what applies to you.
I just had to laugh because my wife texted me and said, "Tell Rob thanks, the check's in the mail."
I'm curious, do people contact you directly?
They sure can.
So,
they sure can.
I give a phone
I'm
number.
going to go ahead and give our phone number. It's 281-484-4663. And our website is Seth, S-E-T-H, FC, like Frank Charlie.com. And we've got information there about our programs, and we're actually updating our website next month, and we're going to be providing contact information for City of Houston programs, Harris County programs. The city of Baytown has a program, the city of Galveston, the city of Texas City. They all have these wonderful programs.
Well, we got a couple of minutes. Why don't you talk about some of those other programs you just mentioned that are coming online?
Okay.
soon?
Well,
What's coming down the pipe?
Yes.
what's coming down? Okay. Well, we did talk about the City of Houston. They've got a great program. Harris County has a program, and that's going to be for Harris County outside the city limits of Houston, because Houston has their program. But they provide up to $14,000 for a new constructed home for first-time home buyers.
Now, we had a statement by Chris Kelso. The thing about new construction is you start the process, it's 6 months before you close.
Mm-hmm.
Is that program still going to be around in 6 months?
Harris County, they do a finite number. With the programs like the Seth 5-Star, those aren't programs that are going to run out of funds. They're replenishing. They're a mortgage type product, so they replenish themselves. As a loan funds, those funds become back available.
Let me ask you this, because this is something I think I've learned from being on the show. What exactly, and Chris, maybe you chime in on this, but what exactly is a first-time home buyer? Is it a person who's never owned a home?
It is someone that has not owned a home
in the past 3 years. That is correct. So you could have
I think
owned a
that's
home 10 years
critical
ago
to
and
know.
sold it. Right. You could have had a home and sold it, 5 years ago. You'd qualify for a first-time home buyer product today. You were going to finish answering that one question, though, because I know we're talking about some of the on the programs that we were going over just now.
About running out of money.
And about running out of money.
Yeah, okay.
On the Harris County side of things.
Yeah,
So
no,
we've got
Harris
under a
County-
minute.
Harris County could. They could in theory. I know they've got funds right now, and they're usually really good about kind of notifying their lenders ahead of time.
That is correct.
Hey, we've got this much, this many loans left, and so the programs, they really do try hard to work with the realtors and the lenders. And I'll tell you, a lot of the programs, we talked about United Texas class educating our realtors. I mean, they bring the programs out there to educate those realtors, so it's straight from the horse's mouth.
I'm
And
learning something
education
today
is
myself.
what
Well,
we're
we're up
about on
against
the
a hard
show,
break.
but we're up against a break again. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.